93.4% of last year's law school graduates had jobs within 10 months. That was the highest rate ever recorded. With 40 years of data, no class has ever done better. The starting salary at a major law firm is $225,000 per year before bonuses. The 100 biggest law firms in the country made $158 billion last year. Their revenues up 13%, and they added nearly 8% more lawyers. The profits per partner topped $3 million. So it's clear the legal profession is booming. The jobs are there, the money is there, and AI hasn't even touched it. And I've spent the past year telling you be careful about going to law school. So I think I owe you a more honest conversation than that. Today, I'm going to lay out the 5 strongest arguments for going to law school right now using the same data that law schools are using to recruit you. I'm going to give you the strongest version of this argument that exists. And then I'm going to take those same 5 arguments using the same reports, the same data sets, sometimes the same paragraphs word for word, and I'm going to show you what's on the other side of each one, because the data isn't wrong, but it might be the most dangerous kind of right. Now, before I get into the numbers, I want to introduce you to 2 people, and I'll come back to them throughout this conversation. The first is Jessica. Jessica enrolled in law school in the fall of 2021. Her LSAT score was in the low 170s, her GPA was around a 3.8, and she applied to law school during a relatively soft admission cycle with fewer applicants than the year before, and she got into a T14 law school with a strong scholarship that cut her sticker price nearly in half. She worked hard, went to law review, moot court, spent her 2L summer at a big law firm in New York, billing hours alongside senior associates and getting pulled into deal rooms that she had no business being in, and she loved it. And so when Jessica graduated in May 2024, she walked into a starting salary of $225,000. Her total debt was about $80,000, which was of course real money, but manageable with her high income. She could see a pretty clear path to paying it off in 5 or 6 years. And so Jessica's doing great, and Jessica is the person law schools want you to picture when you read their marketing brochures. Now, the second person is Marcus. I'll introduce him properly later, but for now, I just want you to know this. He has almost identical stats to Jessica, same LSAT range, same GPA, same ambition, and he's applying to law school right now. The problem is, he thinks he's buying what Jessica actually bought. And so I want to share with you the 5 strongest arguments for going to law school in 2026. I will present each one as clearly and fairly as I can. Argument number 1, legal employment has never been better. Jessica graduated into the best legal job market in recorded history, and she could feel it. She watched nearly every single person in her section land an offer. Out of roughly 50 people she was close with, maybe 2 of them were still searching for jobs by graduation, and both of them were holding out for clerkships. Nobody knew that she was panicking. Nobody was blasting applications into a void. The firms were hungry. And that wasn't a fluke. Across the country, 93.4% of Jessica's class was employed within 10 months of graduation. That is the highest rate the NALP has ever tracked, with over 40 years of data. 84.3% were in jobs where bar passage is required or anticipated. Those are actual lawyer jobs, real legal employment. The unemployment rate was 5.1%, the lowest ever measured. And among those who had jobs, only 6.8% were even looking for something different. Jessica's classmates were employed and they were satisfied with what they'd found. And this was a big class. It was about 3,700 more graduates than the year before. Jessica's 1L class entered in 2021, roughly 12% bigger than recent years. And people like me were warning that the market could not absorb that many new lawyers. We said the pipeline would clog, that employment would dip. But we were wrong. The market absorbed that class whole, and they posted the best numbers in history. Now, argument number 2. Salaries are at all-time highs. Jessica's starting salary, $225,000 per year, was not unusual for her peer group. Every major firm was paying the same thing, the industry standard for large law firms. Total first-year compensation when you factor in bonuses was pushing $250,000 per year. Her friends who were a couple years ahead were clearing over $300,000, and senior associates were above $400,000 base salary before bonuses. And then if you go beyond Big Law, the picture was still pretty strong there too. The overall median salary for Jessica's entire graduating class hit $95,000. That was a new record, up 5.6% from the previous year. For 6 consecutive years, the overall median salary for law school graduates has gone up. Jessica had friends who went into government, public interest, mid-sized firms, and even they were seeing higher starting offers than the classes before them. Government positions for the class of 2024 paid a median of about $70,000. Public interest hit about $62,000, and judicial clerkships continued to be a strong option. Every sector saw gains. Now, argument number 3, the legal industry is booming. Beyond Jessica's personal experience, the industry as a whole was doing great. The AM Law 100, the 100 highest grossing firms in the country, posted $158.3 billion in total revenue last year. That's up 13% year over year. Revenue per lawyer hit $1.28 million. Profits per equity partner reached $3.15 million. Now let's talk about the number that matters most. Attorney headcount at AM Law 100 firms grew nearly 8% to almost 124,000 lawyers. Firms made more money and they added more seats to do it. Hiring laterals aggressively, expanding offices, opening new practice groups, the entire industry was expanding. And that trend extended beyond the AM Law 100. Mid-sized firms, boutiques, and in-house legal departments all reported growth. Jessica's graduating class saw the highest percentage of graduates entering private practice since 1992, nearly 59%, and the number of government and public interest jobs also reached new highs. Now, argument number 4. The smartest people in the country are voting with their feet. The 2025 law school admission cycle saw an 18% jump in applicants and a 22% increase in applications, the highest volume in over a decade. Fall 2025 enrollment hit 145,116 total law students, up 4.4%. First year enrollment jumped nearly 8% to 42,817. The 2026 cycle is trending even stronger. Application numbers are up roughly 20%. LSAT test volume is up approximately 20% as well, year over year. And the profile of who's applying is changing also. The 2025 applicant pool was the most racially and ethnically diverse in history, with half identifying as students of color, and first-gen students increased nearly 37%. And there is a reason for the surge. The top motivations people gave for wanting to go to law school in LSAC's own survey were to help others, to advocate for social justice, and to gain valuable skills. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic, a law degree still represents a structured path to a meaningful career, and people are responding to that. Now let's talk about argument number 5, AI. The truth is that so far, AI hasn't really changed a whole lot yet. Jessica heard the AI warnings all throughout law school, chatbots passing the bar exam, partners talking about automating doc review. Every other week, another headline about robots replacing lawyers. But it didn't actually touch her or anybody she knew. The data showed zero measurable impact on total law graduate hiring for her class. The NALP reported record employment in the same year that AI adoption was accelerating across the profession. A survey of 85 legal professionals published by the National Law Review found that more than 3/4 don't expect artificial general intelligence anytime soon. An MIT Technology Review piece from late 2025 argued that despite acing standardized tests, AI still cannot think like a lawyer. And the numbers back it up. Attorney headcount at the biggest firms grew. The legal AI market is growing fast, but firms are using AI to expand their capacity to take on more work per lawyer. The Clio Legal Trends report found that more than half of legal professionals using AI reported improvements in their workflow, so AI is making lawyers faster, but so far it has not made them expendable. So there it is. Those are 5 different arguments, 5 sets of data showing record employment, record salaries, booming revenue, surging demand, and AI has not made a dent. Now, if I stopped right here, you would have every reason to go sign up to take the LSAT tomorrow. Jessica would tell you to do it. Her experience would back it up. But I'm not going to stop here because you're not Jessica. Jessica graduated in 2024, and you're not going to graduate till 2029 at the earliest. And the distance between those 2 years is where everything changes. Let me reintroduce Marcus. He's applying right now, entering the class of 2026, graduating in 2029, and entering the job market that summer. His stats are almost identical to Jessica's. Same LSAT, same GPA, same drive, same resume. He's read the same 5 arguments I just laid out. His pre-law advisor walked him through the same charts. He's looked at the NLP data, and he thinks he's buying what Jessica bought, but he's not. Because every single number I just gave you, every one of those 5 arguments is looking backward. The employment rate tells you about May 2024, not May 2029. The salaries reflect what firms were paying a year and a half ago. The revenue numbers cover last fiscal year, and the application data describes who's already enrolled. None of it tells you what's happening in 2029. And so I'm going to call this the rear view trap. You make a forward-looking decision using backward-looking data, and the people selling you the decision have every incentive to keep you looking in the rear view mirror. And the reason it works so well is that law schools aren't lying to you. Every number they show you is technically true. But they're handing you the rear view mirror and letting you assume that the road ahead looks the same. And they've done this before. In 2008, 2009, 2010, law schools recruited record classes by pointing to soaring salaries and strong employment. The class that entered in fall 2010, over 52,000 students, the largest class in American history, graduated into a job market so bad it took a decade to recover. Employment for the classes of 2011, 2012, and 2013 was catastrophic. The percentage of graduates in bar-required jobs bottomed out at 64.4%. Nearly 1 in 4 employed graduates was actively looking for different work. The data that law schools showed those students was real, but it was not predictive. And the person who compiles today's record-breaking data is telling you exactly this right now. In the same report that announced 93.4% employment, the same document, same author, the NALP executive director Nakia Gray wrote, quote, "The market has shown resiliency in absorbing periodic surges. That does not mean it can absorb a sustained flood of graduates." So she's telling you in the same report, law schools are emailing to every prospective applicant in the country not to use it as a prediction. Now, let me tell you what's on the other side of those same 5 arguments. Argument number 1, flipped around. The employment data is a trailing indicator, and the leading indicators are pointing down. The front page of the NALP report says 93.4% employment, but the back page says something different. Many firms pulled back on summer associate hiring in 2024 and 2025. The NALP explicitly warned that future law graduates should brace for a likely contraction in both big law and federal hiring. Same report, same data set. One side says the market is the best it's ever been, but the other side says it's about to tighten. And the federal hiring picture has gotten dramatically worse since the report was written. In January 2025, the White House ordered a freeze on federal civilian hiring across the executive branch. That freeze was extended through July 2025. A 4-to-1 attrition policy followed. For every 4 employees who leave, agencies can hire only 1 replacement. According to the General Accounting Office, about 134,000 federal employees separated in the first half of 2025, and only 66,000 were hired. Another 144,000 were approved for deferred resignation. And that matters a ton because government jobs accounted for nearly 13% of all employment for the class of 24, and government was one of the sectors that grew. Public interest organizations are also getting hit as federal grants get cut. Legal aid offices, civil rights organizations, environmental law groups, the entire public interest pipeline that absorbs a significant share of law graduates is contracting at the exact same moment the applicant pool is expanding. During Jessica's 2L summer, she turned down a DOJ internship because she had 3 better offers. This past spring, the State Department and the DOJ rescinded internship offers that students had already accepted. One law student had already given notice to her landlord, expecting a summer in Washington. Instead, she spent weeks scrambling for anything she could find. Jessica had options in government and public interest, but by the time Marcus graduates, entire categories of those jobs might be gone. Now, let's look at argument number 2 flipped around. The salary data is hiding a canyon or a dip, and that's something that law schools never show you. The NLP has published for nearly 20 years a chart called the bimodal salary distribution. It shows where law graduate salaries actually cluster. And it's not a bell curve, it's a canyon with 2 cliffs. On one side, you've got a sharp peak around $215,000 to $225,000. That's your typical big law starting salary. But on the other end, you've got a broader, lower peak in the $55,000 a year range to $100,000 a year range. And that's everyone else. And in between, in the $100,000 to $190,000 range, that's where almost nobody falls. Now, about half of reported salaries cluster in the lower peak. The $225,000 peak, the big law area, despite being the number that everybody talks about, that's a much smaller share. And only about a third of law firms even pay the full big law salary. Then that $95,000 median, the number that sounds reasonable, is a fiction. Almost nobody earns that number. You either get 225 or you get 70, and the median is the middle where almost nobody actually works. Now, buried in the most recent data, for the first time since 2011, the median salary in private practice actually declined down 3% to $160,000. Maybe it's better salary reporting, but maybe what we're seeing now is closer to the truth. And meanwhile, at the same time, 29.6% of first-year students with conditional scholarships have those scholarships reduced or eliminated. 1 in 5 law students is paying full sticker price, and the average borrower graduates with around $130,000 in law school debt alone. And at current federal interest rates, 7.9% for Stafford loans, 8.9% for Grad Plus, that $130,000 becomes over $150,000 by the time the first payment is due. And you start accruing interest the moment they give you the money. Now, Jessica got a strong scholarship during a soft cycle and graduated with manageable debt into big law. Now, Marcus is entering the most competitive cycle in 15 years, which means less scholarship money, more debt, and a salary that, unless he lands in the top third, won't come close to the number in the brochure. Now let's look at argument number 3 flipped around. The revenue boom is built on a billing rate, not on demand. That number, $158 billion in revenue, sounds pretty good, but look at where the growth comes from. Demand for actual legal services grew just 1.1% in the first half of 2025. Only 1.1%. That 13% revenue surge came from charging higher prices for the same work, not higher productivity. Now, that pricing strategy won't last forever, the clients are going to notice. Nearly 2/3 of in-house legal teams now expect to reduce their reliance on outside counsel. 6 in 10 in-house professionals surveyed said they'd see no savings in time or money from their outside lawyers' use of AI. They're paying more, but the efficiency gains have not yet materialized, and clients are pushing back on the rate hikes. So the math is eventually going to break. Now, Jessica's firm raised rates 8% last year, and clients paid it, but clients are shopping for alternatives like AI tools, smaller firms, or bringing work in-house. Now let's look at argument number 4, flipped. The application surge is Marcus's competition, not validation for him to go. Every additional applicant makes Marcus's life harder. The 2025 cycle was already the most competitive in over a decade. Schools that used to be targets became reaches. LSAT medians climbed across the board. As of the most recent 509 disclosures, 72 law schools now have median GPAs above 375, up from a decade ago, up 18 schools. For the 2026 cycles, applicants are up another 20% or more, and that scholarship money is being stretched across the larger, more credentialed pool. LSAT medians rising, GPA medians rising means it's tougher to get those scholarships. Now, Jessica was able to negotiate her scholarship up by $15,000 because she had competing offers and the school wanted to lock her in. Marcus is applying into a cycle where schools have more applicants than seats, and so the leverage is gone. The same school will cost him way more than it cost her. And the surge won't just stop at admissions, it hits the pipeline also, because 3 consecutive years of elevated enrollment means 3 oversized classes stacking on top of each other in the job market. The class of 2024 was a periodic surge and the market absorbed it, but 3 years of surges is a sustained flood, which is what Nakia Gray of NALP warned us about. Now, the last time this happened, it produced the worst employment outcomes in modern history. It took until roughly 2017 before employment data recovered to pre-recession levels. Now let's look at argument number 5 flipped around. AI doesn't have to replace lawyers to destroy the entry-level pipeline. The reports say that AI has not impacted hiring, but that was also technically true of COVID in January 2020. Took a little while. Underneath the headlines, look at, for example, Baker McKenzie, top 10 global law firm. They laid off more than 700 people this February, directly citing AI. The firm said it was rethinking the way it works, including through its use of AI. Above the Law added some context here, saying that the firm was not done with this. They were still rethinking the way they work. And the thing that no one's talking about is the compression effect. AI doesn't actually have to replace lawyers, it just has to shrink the work. Entry-level associate work like doc review, contract analysis, due diligence, legal research, memo drafting, that's how firms bill hours off junior associates. But it's also the apprenticeship, it's how you learn to become a lawyer. Those hours of grunt work are your training ground. You read 1,000 contracts in year 1, so that by year 3, you can spot a problematic clause in 30 seconds, and you can't shortcut that. Jessica spent her first 6 months doing doc review on a pharmaceutical merger. 12-hour days, thousands of pages, miserable and essential. But by the end of it, she understood due diligence at a level that no classroom could teach. The AI tool her firm rolled out does that same review in an afternoon. The partners do still need someone to check the output, but they don't need 12 first years doing it anymore. 3 first years is enough. And so when an AI tool compresses a 40-hour research project into 4 hours, the firm's going to keep the associates from Yale with the law review article in the federal clerkship, but the kid from the school ranked 60th, they're going to rescind his offer or never make it in the first place. Now, there's one more thing worth watching here. The NALP found that despite record high overall hiring, the median salary across all law firms declined 3%. So you've got record hiring and falling salaries at the same time. And when you see more lawyers and less pay per lawyer, the supply of labor is outpacing the growth in demand. And if AI compresses entry-level work by even 20 or 30% over the next 3 years, that gap is going to widen fast. And so the rearview trap tells Marcus that AI has not yet impacted hiring. But the word yet is key here. By the time yet becomes now, Marcus will be 3 years into a decision he can't undo, and he'll have spent $150,000 or be that much in debt. Now let's talk about what the median outcome actually looks like. In 2030, fast forwarding, Marcus graduated, passed the bar on his first attempt, and he's not unemployed, but he's working at a 30-person firm in a mid-tier market, making only $85,000. He's got student debt with 3 years of accrued interest at nearly 9%, just over $150,000. Monthly payments about $1,400, nearly a quarter of his take-home pay. He has not yet started saving for retirement. It's not feasible for him to get a mortgage, and he's putting things on credit cards. So he's fine and not in a crisis, but he is stuck, caught between the career he imagined and the debt he actually has with no obvious way out. Now, I don't think law school is a scam. I never have. A legal education is one of the most powerful credentials in the world, and I see it transform people's lives every single week in what I do. But I do think that law schools are doing something dangerous right now. They're using the best backward-looking data in decades to recruit the largest classes in 15 years into a market that every serious analysis, including the people who compile the data, is warning may not hold. And they've done it before with consequences that lasted a decade. Most applicants are making a $200,000 decision based on the front page of a report they've never actually flipped over. That is the rearview trap, and I want to make sure that you don't fall into it. And so if you're watching this, I want you to do 5 things before you write that deposit check for law school. First, I want you to pull the 509 data for every school on your list, not the national numbers, the employment outcomes of the actual schools you are considering. Ask yourself, what percentage of their graduates are in bar required jobs? How many are employed by the school itself? Those school-funded positions inflate the numbers, and they will disappear after 1 year. You also want to run the salary math on the left side of that bimodal curve, because the distribution means you're going to likely earn somewhere between $55,000 and $100,000. So you want to take your total projected debt, including accrued interest, and divide it by that number. If the ratio is above 1.5 to 1, you're going to need a very specific plan for how you manage that debt. If it's above 2 to 1, you're going to want a scholarship. And if you're getting a scholarship, understand it. If it's conditional, if it requires a GPA or a particular class rank, know that nearly 30% of students with conditional scholarships lose some or all of that money. It is in the 509 disclosures. You can see this for yourself. So ask schools for the retention data. If a school is offering you money tied to a GPA that they know a large percentage of students won't maintain, it's a teaser. It's not a true scholarship. You also want to look at where the jobs actually are. Nearly 2/3 of employed graduates work in the same state where they went to school. If you go to a school where in a market with a weak legal economy, you're going upstream, it's going to be tough. Research the legal market in the city where you want to practice, because the rankings don't hire you, employers in your city hire you. And assume that things are going to get worse when you graduate. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Build your plan on the assumption that big law hiring contracts, that federal jobs stay scarce, and that AI compresses entry-level work by the time you walk across that stage. If your plan still works under those conditions, it's a good plan. But if it only works in the best case, if it requires everything going right, that's not a plan, it's just a bet. And $200,000 is a lot of money to bet. And if you want my help doing the math for your situation, for your personal situation based on your LSAT score, your GPA, the schools you're targeting, I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now and later. The link is below this video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and Instagram as well. And if you haven't yet seen the video where I trace out what the law school market looks like in 2030, I'm linking it below this video on YouTube. I'm happy to help you out.